Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another deck profile. Today is going to be a Legend World deck centered around Angel Dragons and Empyreal cores. So Angel Dragons and Empyreal cores with the newest set, SBT06, they got a lot of new tools to help both of their main strategies. So their main strategies are either like a control burn kind of a deck, where you just play a whole bunch of stuff on your opponent's turn and then you just burn them to death, or the other version that you could run, which is the build that I currently have built, is going to be a Lost World Turbo deck. In both scenarios, I choose to use Raphael as the buddy. I think he's just a really solid Angel Dragon because of his ability. For 2 gauge, you put the top card of your deck into its soul. You could play him on your opponent's turn with the Advent ability. All Empyreal core cards have Advent. And Advent is you can play it during their attack phase into an open area by paying its call cost. At the start of your opponent's final phase, if you took 4 or more damage this turn, you gain 8 life and draw 2 cards. Taking 4 damage on the opponent's turn isn't very hard to do. The gaining 8 life part is a lot of life, and drawing 2 cards gets us 1 step closer to Lost World. So as such, I choose to run 4 of the buddy. Next, I run 4 copies of Angel Troop at Exousia. So he has Advent, and when he enters through Advent, if you have another Empyreal core on your field, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them into your hand, and charge the rest. You could choose no cards and just charge both of them. That also is an option, but most of the time, you're just going to gain a lot of gauge as quickly as you possibly can. Next, I run 3 copies of Angel Troop Lyntis. So this is just another Advent gain gauge. So if it was played through Advent, you gain 3 gauge instead of the 1 if you play it on your turn. Next, I run 3 copies of Angel Troop Lykris. This just helps us control our life total. So if it entered normally, you gain 1. If it entered through Advent, you gain an additional 3. So altogether, if you played it with Advent, you gain 4 life. Next, I run 3 copies of Pure White Angel Eden. Its original size gets reduced by 1 if you control a size 3 monster on your field. And then when it enters the field through Advent, you deal 1 damage to your opponent. You could drop a hand card. If you do, search for a size 3 Adventurer or Angel Dragon from your deck to your hand. So most of the time, we just use this to tutor Raphael. That's it for the monsters. Now we move on to the spells. So I run 4 copies of Cleansing Judgment. So you can only cast this on your opponent's turn if you have an Empyreal core on your field. Draw a card, and for this turn, all Empyreal core cards on your field can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, get plus 5,000 defense, and damage your opponent takes through card effects can't be reduced. Most of the time, I'm just using this to just draw the card, and if I can keep my monsters around to help stall out a turn or 2 to try to find Lost World, then that's just the additional benefit. Next, I run 4 copies of Glory of Heavens. So you can only cast this on your opponent's turn if you have an Empyreal core on your field. Its casting cost is you taking 2 damage. Taking damage and paying life are 2 different things. In this deck, we want to take damage so we could trigger their abilities. That's what makes them pretty good. And then on top of that, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge and draw 2 cards. So it gauges 2 and draws 2, and we take 2 damage. Next, I run 4 copies of Angelic Radiance. This is a really solid card because you can choose one of the 2. You can put an Empyreal Core's item from your deck to your hand and shuffle your deck, or you could put a monster from your drop zone into your hand and you take 1 damage. It helps us just filter through our deck, getting us our item if we don't have it, or basically allowing us to tutor a monster from our drop zone to our hand. Next, I run 4 copies of White Request. This is one of the new cards that Angel Dragons is getting, and it's probably the most important card in the entire deck if you're choosing to build the Lost World build. So what the card does is you can only cast it on your opponent's turn if you have an Empyreal Core's card on your field. You take 1 damage, you charge 2 gauge, and then you look at your gauge and put any card among them into your hand. Basically, this is how we're going to be trying to tutor out Lost World on the opponent's turn more often than not. And because its casting cost is taking a damage and not paying any gauge at all, it guarantees us that we're going to have enough gauge to go into Lost World if it's in our gauge. Next, I run 4 copies of Sacred Holy Grail. You can only cast it on your opponent's turn. If they're attacking you, you take 2 damage, you nullify the attack, and if the opponent has attacked 3 or more times, if you have an Angel Dragon on your field, you just end the phase. So it's really solid with Raphael because it just ends the phase and then they go straight to their final phase, triggering Raphael's effect. Next, I run 3 copies of Highest Authority, so you can only cast it on your opponent's attack. You take 1 damage, you nullify the attack, and put an Empyreal Cores monster from your drop zone to your hand. It's a really good card because it not only does it nullify the attack, it just adds a monster back from our drop to our hand. Next, I run 2 copies of Holy Wish. So you can only cast this if you have an Empyreal Cores card on your field. You take 2 damage, destroy up to 2 cards on your opponent's field, and if any were destroyed, you draw a card. Most of the time, you're going to want to use this to try to pick at their item or set spells, or if they have a monster that's not well protected, you could pick that off. And we just mainly run it to try to disrupt the field and draw a card, all at the same time. Next, I run 4 copies of Oswira Gard. You put a monster from your field to the drop zone as its cast cost, and then counter, put the top card of your deck into your gauge and draw a card. So the reason why we run this is because of the counter ability. We don't care that we're losing a monster because we have cards to gain it back, but we care about the instant speed, charging, and drawing, so that way we can try to find Lost World on the opponent's turn, and the fact that it's also not costing us any gauge to do so is very important because it just means we could stockpile our gauge to basically tutor out Lost World with White Request. Next, we move on to the items. I run 2 copies of Divine Cane Massfortune. It has the counter ability where you can return an Empyreal Core monster from your field to your hand, put the top card of your deck into your gauge, and you can only activate it once per turn. So the only reason why we use this over the other item is because of that counter speed, put a card back from the hand, and charging the gauge. The other one just allows you to put any back into your hand, and this just puts 1, which most of the time we're going to use it to try to charge the gauge anyway. That's basically it. We just use it to charge the gauge, put a card back into our hand, so that way we could replay it to try to charge more gauge, so that way we just have a good gauge to search through with White Request. And then lastly, we run 2 copies of Lost World. So that's it for the main deck. I do have some of the cards you could run in the burn variant. You can run Angel Troop Tax. He has Advent. And then at the start of your opponent's final phase, if you took 3 or more damage, you gain 2 life and deal 2 damage to the opponent. So he's just there again as the burn damage or some burn damage for the deck. You could also run Circle of Reflect. This is a set spell. All Empyreal Core cards on your field cannot be nullified by the opponent's card effects. During the attack phase, when an Empyreal Core monster enters the field, draw a card and deal 2 damage to the opponent, and then you can only have 1 of them set. So it's just really good in the burn variant because it's burning the opponent and drawing you a card all on the opponent's turn at counter speed. Then you could run one of the newer cards, Angel Troop Sashel. So it has Advent, and then when it enters the field through Advent, destroy a card on your opponent's field. So it's really good because it can destroy any card. You could also run Angelic Charge. You could run this in the Lost World variant too because it's just really good. I just felt like in the Lost World variant, this card is a little excessive. So what it does is you can only cast it if you have an Empyreal Core card on your field. You take 1 damage and you basically charge 4. I just feel like with all of the other ways we have of gauge gaining, charging 4 is just a little excessive in the Lost World build, but you could totally run it in there. And for the burn variant, because you don't have as much ways to gain gauge, I feel like it fits a lot cleaner into that version. Then you could also run Angel Troop Elsa, pay 1 gauge, and then it has Advent. When this card enters by Advent, if you have another Empyreal Core card on your field, just deal 2 damage to the opponent. So again, it's just another card to just burn the opponent. Then the item change is the other item. You could run Angel Wings in the burn build. So this is better in the burn build because we don't care about trying to get to Lost World as fast as possible, which is the only reason why we're running Divine Crane, is because we could do it all on the opponent's turn. So Angel Wings, you pay 1 gauge. This card can't be destroyed or returned to hand by the opponent's card effects. When you take damage other than by an attack, you gain 1 life, which is really important because it helps control our life total. And then at the end of your turn, return any number of Empyreal Core monsters from your field to your hand. So in the burn build, it's a little bit better because you fill up your field, you burn the opponent, then on your turn, you attack with what's on your field, and then you just use the item to return them to your hand, so that way you could get their Advent abilities off again. Then you could also run the other Angel Dragons. This Angel Dragon, you pay 2 gauge, put the top card of your deck into its soul. It has Advent, and then at the start of the final phase, if you took 4 or more damage this turn, nullify all abilities of all of the opponent's monsters and destroy them. It's a pretty good board clear. Then in the burn variant, you have to run Judgment Holy Rain. So you can only cast this during your opponent's final phase. If you took damage this turn, and if you have an Angel Dragon on your field, and your opponent has 5 or less life. Don't worry, it's a lot easier to get off than you think. And then its cast cost is pay 2 gauge, and then deal 5 damage to the opponent. This damage can't be reduced. So it's just really solid deal 5 damage, essentially, in this deck, because its conditions to cast aren't very hard to meet at all. But you have to run this card in the burn variant. So the reason why is because you're going to be running the new Archdragon Grail. The new Grail, you pay 2 gauge, put the top card of your deck into its soul, and then it has Advent, and then at the start of the opponent's final phase, if you were dealt 5 or more damage this turn, you gain 5 life and deal 5 damage to your opponent, and put an Empyreal Core Impact card from your deck into your hand. So basically the whole idea is Raphael deals 5, and then Judgment Holy Rain deals the other 5. And it's just an easy 10 damage. That's not even including the fact that you have all of the other cards that just chip away and burn at the opponent's life. Getting the conditions for Judgment Holy Rain and Grail just to be lethal on their own is very easy. And then lastly, you could run the original Grail. So you pay 2 gauge, put the top card of your deck into its soul. It has Advent, and then at the start of the opponent's final phase, if you took 4 or more damage, you gain 4, destroy all monsters on the opponent's field, and deal 4. It's not as good as the newer Grail as far as like just the sheer damage it can produce off of its ability on the opponent's turn, but it's a really good backup in case you don't have it, but you still have Judgment, so you could still find lethal even with the original Grail. And then other cards you could run Loyalty, just to try to control the opponent by making sure they can't call more than 3 monsters a turn. You could run Buddy Block, just to stop the damage that you're going to be taking after their 4th attack. You could run Overturn Ice Emperor Masseria as like a good reset button kind of card, where it's just like, okay, this hand doesn't work out, let me just play this, reset my hand, reset the field, and continue from there. And then you could also run Angelic Gard, because it's just a really solid draw 2 cards for Legend World. Then some interesting cards you could possibly run would be some of the 5th Omni cards. So because Omnilord, you can run them in any world, but you can only have 1 copy of it if it's not the designated world. You can still run some of the Omnilords. So you could run Sky Emperor Mugen Drum. Because the Omnilord's effects are similar to the Empyreal Core effects, where you have to take damage, and all of the cards' casting cost is taking damage, you could use the 5th Omni stuff to take the damage, proc their abilities, and still play your own stuff. It's just a really interesting tech that I found. So you could also run 5th Omni Successor Drum. He's just another Omnilord that when you take damage, his ability can proc. Getting to 6 life isn't that big of a deal because you have so much life gain in both builds. And then you could also run 5th Omni Dragon Lord Drum, the original one. Again, just trying to get as many copies of the 5th Omni stuff as possible, so that way when you're dealt damage, you could just start popping their stuff in response. That's it for the Angel Dragons. I think that with the Lost World Turbo deck, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how well they do, because you just gain so much gauge. You could tailor make your Lost World deck to fit the fact that you use or gain so much gauge. Like, it's actually kind of insane how much gauge you can have. And because the new card, White Request, is just so good at tutoring out your gauge, I think it's just insane. And the fact that you can do this all on the opponent's turn too. So like you could technically set up a ginormous turn 0 Lost World. Like, it's crazy. I thought it's really fun. Through testing, it was really fun. I hope you enjoy. I hope you like and subscribe for more content. And I will see you in the next video.